These are 10 fish found in American waters that have sent real people to the emergency room, and in some cases, done far worse. Some sting, some poison you when you eat them. And a few manage to do both, which means you don't have to be reckless to end up in serious trouble. You just have to be wading through shallow water or sitting down to what you thought was a perfectly safe seafood dinner. One thing worth knowing before we get into this. Scientists draw a line between fish that are venomous and fish that are toxic. Venomous fish deliver their poison actively through spines or barbs or bites. Toxic fish poison you when you eat them. Both types show up on this list, and both types can put you flat on your back in a hospital. Most people call all of them poisonous, and for what we're talking about today, that's close enough. Number 10. The stingray. 1,500 to 2,000 stingray injuries happen in the United States every single year, which makes them one of the most common sources of aquatic injury in the country, and yet most of the people who get stung never saw it coming. Stingrays spend most of their time lying still on the sandy bottom in shallow coastal water, exactly where people wade and swim, and they are not aggressive animals hunting anything down. What they do is react. Step on one and the tail comes up on instinct, driving a barbed spine into your foot or ankle before you can pull away. The wound combines a deep laceration and a venom injection happening at the same moment, and the pain arrives immediately. After the initial injury, infection becomes the main concern, one that can turn serious if the wound doesn't get properly cleaned and treated. The fix that locals along both coasts and throughout the Gulf of Mexico have passed down for generations is called the stingray shuffle. Drag your feet along the bottom instead of lifting them, and the vibration sends any resting ray moving before you make contact. Southern stingrays, round stingrays, and Atlantic stingrays are the species most often involved in U.S. incidents, and all three share the same shallow water territory where people least expect any danger. Number 9. The catfish. Most Americans think of catfish as something you catch on a slow afternoon and fry up for dinner, and most of them have no idea that the majority of catfish species in the United States carry venomous spines. The spines sit on the dorsal fin and both pectoral fins, locking upright the moment the fish feels threatened. And the venom glands live in the tissue wrapped around those spines rather than inside a hollow fang. That distinction doesn't make the result any less painful. Channel catfish, blue catfish, and flathead catfish cause the most injuries in fresh water, while hardhead catfish and gaff-topsail catfish are responsible for incidents along the Gulf and Atlantic coasts. Anglers who grab a catfish without knowing what they're holding are the most frequent victims, and a spine driven into the palm of your hand produces sharp, immediate pain followed by serious swelling. When the spine breaks off inside the wound, the medical situation gets considerably harder to resolve. There's also a traditional fishing practice in the American South called noodling, hand fishing for catfish by reaching into underwater holes and letting the fish bite down so you can haul it out. And it is exactly as dangerous as it sounds. Spine injuries come with the territory, and the practice is currently legal in approximately 16 states. Number 8. The toadfish. Along the Atlantic coast from Maine down to Florida lives a fish that almost nobody thinks about until they've already stepped on one. The oyster toadfish hides in oyster beds, discarded shells, and debris on the seafloor, which puts it directly in the path of anyone wading through shallow coastal water without paying close attention. Venomous spines sit on its gill cover and along its dorsal fin, and on top of that, it delivers a powerful bite capable of causing serious lacerations alongside the envenomation. People wade through oyster beds all the time without a second thought, and the toadfish sits there perfectly still and camouflaged, waiting. On the Pacific side, the plainfin midshipman presents the same hazard for a different coastline. Neither fish is large or looks particularly threatening, and that's exactly what makes both of them dangerous. The unremarkable ones rarely get the respect they've earned. Number 7. The scorpionfish. From Point Conception southward along the Pacific coast lives a fish with 12 venomous dorsal spines and one of the best camouflage systems of any animal in American waters. The California scorpionfish, also called the sculpin, looks on the seafloor like a piece of encrusted rock or dead coral, and people who fish for them or wade through their territory step on them regularly. Related species live along the Gulf Coast and in Atlantic waters as well. A sting from a scorpionfish produces immediate, severe burning pain, followed by swelling and potential tissue damage, and the medically accepted first-line treatment is hot water immersion, water as hot as you can reasonably tolerate, because the heat breaks down the protein-based venom and provides genuine relief. This is not a folk remedy passed down by fishermen. It's the standard response used in emergency medicine, and it works. The scorpionfish also belongs to the same family as the stonefish, which holds the title of most venomous fish in the world. True stonefish aren't native to U.S. waters, but the family connection in terms of venom severity and camouflage behavior tells you something about what you're dealing with when a sculpin ends up under your foot. Number 6. The lionfish. 1985 is when the lionfish story in America begins, with a single confirmed sighting off Dania Beach, Florida, almost certainly released into the ocean by an aquarium owner who no longer wanted it. By 2010, according to NOAA, it had spread across virtually the entire U.S., East Coast, and throughout the Gulf of Mexico, and it brought 18 venomous spines with it across its dorsal, pelvic, and anal fins. A sting causes intense pain, swelling, nausea, and in some cases, breathing difficulty. Deaths in healthy adults are extremely rare, but the venom is not something you walk off. The ecological damage has been staggering, and that's where the story gets genuinely strange. The lionfish has no natural predators in Atlantic or Gulf waters. A single female produces up to 2 million eggs per year, and NOAA studies found that lionfish can strip native reef fish populations by up to 90% in some areas. The response from wildlife agencies was to encourage people to hunt and eat them. The flesh is completely non-toxic and reportedly delicious, and lionfish hunting tournaments now run regularly across Florida and Gulf states. It is one of the stranger conservation strategies in recent American environmental history, a fish so destructive that eating it has become an act of public service. Number 5. The Moray Eel. Technically a fish, though it doesn't look much like one, the Moray Eel carries a different kind of danger than most entries on this list. Green morays and spotted morays live in Florida and Gulf waters, while the California moray covers the Pacific coast, and none of them are venomous in the traditional sense. The danger comes from the bite. Powerful jaws lined with backward-curving teeth designed to tear flesh inward rather than release it, which means a bite doesn't simply puncture, it shreds. What follows the bite is often worse than the initial injury, because moray mouths harbor serious bacteria, including species of Vibrio, and the wounds they create are notoriously difficult to clean. Many moray bites recorded in the United States involve divers or snorkelers who were hand-feeding the animals, which wildlife educators have consistently warned against for years. And here's the biology that almost nobody outside of marine science knows. The moray carries a second set of jaws in its throat, called pharyngeal jaws, that lurch forward during a bite to grip prey and drag it deeper. This mechanism exists in almost no other vertebrate on Earth, and the alien creature from the science fiction franchise Alien was reportedly inspired in part by this anatomy, which for a fish that most people consider harmless is an extraordinary thing to be connected to. Number 4. The Barracuda. Throughout Florida waters, across the Gulf of Mexico, and into the Caribbean, the great barracuda is a familiar presence that experienced anglers chase for sport. Fast, aggressive, and visually striking, it's a popular game fish, and it also carries one of the most serious food safety risks of any fish in American waters. The flesh itself isn't inherently toxic. The danger lives inside what the flesh may contain, because large barracuda spend years at the top of reef food chains accumulating a toxin called Ciguatera, picking it up from smaller fish that fed on toxic algae. The older and larger the fish, the higher the concentration, which is why the FDA has specifically advised against eating barracuda from Florida waters. The CDC lists barracuda among the top 3 fish most commonly associated with this type of poisoning in U.S. waters. Some Caribbean communities have passed down a practical rule across generations. Don't eat one longer than 3 feet. Not a regulation, not a law, just accumulated knowledge from people who learned what happens when you ignore it. Number 3. Ciguatera and the fish that carry it. The most common food-borne fish illness in the world doesn't get nearly the attention it deserves. Ciguatera poisoning, affects an estimated 50,000 to 500,000 people globally every year, and the CDC believes the actual U.S. case count may run 10 to 100 times higher than what gets officially recorded because the condition is massively underreported. Florida, Hawaii, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico carry the highest risk within American territory. A marine microalgae that grows on reef surfaces produces the toxin responsible. Small fish consume it, larger fish consume those fish, and predators at the top, grouper, snapper, amberjack, hogfish, and barracuda accumulate the highest concentrations over time. Nothing about the fish reveals the danger. It looks normal, smells normal, and tastes completely normal. Cooking doesn't destroy ciguatoxin. No antidote exists. The symptoms are among the most unusual in medicine, and the one that defines the condition is something called temperature reversal. Cold objects feel burning hot. Hot objects feel cold. Touching a glass of ice water feels like holding a flame. This symptom can persist for months, and in severe cases, patients deal with neurological effects and chronic fatigue that stretch on for years. Climate scientists tracking ocean temperatures have noted since 2023 that warming seas may be pushing the range of the responsible algae northward, potentially expanding Ciguatera into waters where it has never historically been a concern. Number 2. The pufferfish. No vertebrate on Earth carries a more potent poison than the pufferfish. The toxin is called tetrodotoxin, and toxicologists estimate it runs approximately 1,200 times more poisonous than cyanide, with a lethal dose measured in micrograms per kilogram of body weight. No antidote exists. Northern puffers, checkered puffers, and smooth puffers all live in U.S. waters along the Atlantic coast and throughout the Gulf of Mexico, and the toxin concentrates in the liver, the ovaries, the skin, and the intestines. The flesh, separated carefully from all of those organs, is edible. In Japan, pufferfish has been a traditional delicacy called fugu for centuries, prepared exclusively by licensed chefs who train for years specifically to clean the fish without contaminating the meat. Even with that level of expertise and regulation, Japan historically recorded approximately 30 to 50 deaths per year from fugu poisoning, a number that has come down as licensing tightened. In the United States, poisoning incidents are rare but documented, occurring most often among recreational fishers who catch puffers and eat them without understanding what they're holding, or in communities where the fish was imported or misidentified. The FDA has issued multiple warnings about consuming pufferfish caught in U.S. waters, and the message has never changed. Don't eat it unless you know with absolute certainty what you're doing, and even then, the margin for error is paper thin. The same tetrodotoxin found in this fish also turns up in blue-ringed octopus, certain species of salamander, and some marine bacteria, which suggests the fish acquires the toxin through diet rather than producing it internally. Researchers are now studying tetrodotoxin in controlled pharmaceutical settings as a potential chronic pain treatment, which means the deadliest thing in the American ocean may eventually find its way into medicine. Number 1. And what connects all of them? Every fish on this list shares one characteristic that most people never stop to consider. None of them are hunting you. Stingrays sting because they get stepped on. Catfish spine people because they get grabbed. Scorpionfish sit on the bottom until something lands on top of them. Even the Moray Eel, with its nightmare anatomy and throat full of extra jaws, only bites when someone provokes it or holds food directly in front of its face. The risk from these animals is almost entirely a function of not knowing they're there, and that's actually useful information because knowledge changes what happens next. The stingray shuffle costs nothing. Choosing not to eat large barracuda from Florida waters costs you one meal. Knowing that a pufferfish is not just a funny-looking animal someone keeps in a tank, but one of the most chemically dangerous vertebrates on the planet, that single piece of information is enough to save a life. The Poison Control Center's national number in the United States is 1-800-222-1222. And if you or someone near you has been stung or has eaten something and you're not sure what was in it, that call is the right first move. America's waters hold extraordinary, ancient, and genuinely beautiful animals, including every one of these 10. No fear required, just a healthy measure of respect.